Welcome into Full Throttle, the Presidio Group's automotive industry podcast. I'm your host, Jason Stein, Managing Director at Presidio. Great to have you back listening again with us.
So today it might take 500 or 600 deals for an F&I manager to see enough of reality to be comfortable and proficient when it comes to administering transactions. I don't have exact data yet. We've just launched the tool. But what we're trying to do is narrow that gap. And what we built in Gyde is called Coach's Corner. So the data I was referencing earlier about a claim, in Coach's Corner, we are telling F&I managers, this is the way you should approach this consumer based on the persona, and these are the things you should highlight. So we're authenticating to the consumer, but we're also authenticating to the F&I manager. And over time, that will get smarter as well. So we're helping speed up the transaction from a proficiency perspective with the F&I manager, and also helping to provide them more insight that they could develop a faster relationship with the end consumer.
As most listeners know, for decades, the dealership F&I office has been one of the most important and often most misunderstood parts of the business. It's where profitability meets the customer experience, where technology, transparency, and trust all converge in a matter of minutes during the vehicle purchase. But the expectations around that process are changing fast. Today's consumers want the same things in the F&I office that they expect everywhere else: speed, personalization, and transparency. At the same time, dealers are looking for smarter tools that can integrate data, simplify workflows, and help their teams deliver a better experience while protecting profitability in an increasingly competitive retail environment. And that's where JM&A Group is focusing its attention. Under the leadership of President Scott Gunnell, the company is pushing deeper into technology innovation for the dealership, including the recent introduction of Gyde, Guiding Your Dealership Experience, an adaptive F&I platform designed to streamline the finance process, personalize interactions with customers, and bring analytics and real-time data into the deal flow. It's part of a broader strategy that also includes new OEM partnerships, workforce development initiatives, and investments aimed at helping dealers navigate the next phase of automotive retail. So what does the modern F&I office look like? How will integrated technology reshape the dealership workflow? And where are the biggest opportunities for dealers as customer expectations continue to evolve? Joining me to talk about all of that and much more is Scott Gunnell, president of JM&A Group.
Hi, I'm Scott Gunnell, and this is Presidio's podcast, Full Throttle.
We always learn something when Scott comes to the program, or if he's on stage at our many events, anywhere that we run into Scott Gunnell. So good to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jason. Good to see you. I always love joining anything that Presidio puts on, so I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Yeah, thank you. Well, looking to the year ahead, you've made several exciting announcements, including the introduction of Gyde. Tell us a little bit more about that. And actually, before we get into that, I mean, you made a big splash at NADA, and I know it was very important for you to introduce some of these things. How important was NADA for you before we get into Gyde?
NADA was very important. Obviously, with what happened in New Orleans the year before, we anticipated a higher crowd than what would probably be normally expected for there. We definitely got it. There was a tremendous buzz across all of NADA. We actually upsized our booth in preparation for it. And NADA is a great data point or time for us to introduce new. And what we have tried to do over the last several years is make our booth really a working booth. We're there to showcase capability, not just to catch up with folks, as much as we do love catching up with folks. And so we had higher traffic than we've seen for as long as we've been measuring traffic in our booth, and a lot of engagement with our dealers. So overall, NAD was a success. I think there was a lot of curiosity from dealers. There's a lot of optimism, with some skepticism. I was going to combine both those words. But dealers curious about AI, curious about the market. 16 million SAR is a healthy business for us, and for us being the industry. And so just a lot of optimistic curiosity that we were able to interact upon with our dealers and prospects.
So tell us now about Gyde, because I know it was a big thing was to have the introduction of it there. Tell us really what it is. It is guiding your dealership experience, but what does that mean?
Yeah, so again, another acronym we introduced, GYDE, but guiding your dealership experience really is a long time coming for JM&A. So if you take a step back, for the last nearly 20 years, we have depended on third parties to help us from a technological perspective in the transaction. And they've done a great job for us. It's been wonderful partnerships that we've had. But what we realized is we have a bold aspiration to lead the future of F&I. And what we realized was in order to do that, we have to have greater real estate in the transaction. And specifically why real estate in the transaction matters is that when you think of all the data that we have and how much we've learned over the 60 million contracts we've sold or the 15.5 million we have in force, all the knowledge that exists in our business from a reporting and analytics perspective about performance at the transaction level, claims, we're not leveraging that capability to the extent that we thought we could. And so ultimately, it was years in the making us coming up with the need to introduce a retail transaction tool. And that's ultimately what Gyde is. So Gyde replaces the need for both a menu and a reporting solution. It's all encompassed in the one solution. And we built it with modularized capability that we could API functions within Gyde into other tools, whether it's a digital retailing tool or if somebody else has another transactional platform outside of digital retailing that they wanted to leverage some of our capabilities. We built it in that manner.
So it's helping dealers make better operational decisions, certainly.
Correct.
Not build external data pipelines, right?
Right. That's exactly right. And so what Gyde is there's two engines within Gyde. One of the engines in Gyde takes all the data that we have, and we've sourced some third-party data as well, i.e. we're looking for road quality data. We look at weather data because those are important inputs. We look at vehicle history data. So we've incorporated those via API, and then we have our data. So as an example of our data, Jason, if we know if you have one of our products, if you've used one of our products. So if you have one and if you've used one, the tool will tell the F&I manager that those two things are in fact true. Let's say you don't have one of our products. What the tool will tell you is customers, and we've built personas in the tool, and I'm going to touch on this second engine in just a second. But what we will tell the F&I manager is that if you don't have one of our products, customers or personas similar to the customer that's in front of the F&I manager transacting the dealership tend to behave this way and have purchased products such as this. And all that's designed to do is to create more efficiency for both the customer and the F&I manager or the dealer personnel that's involved at the store level. We're trying to speed up time. We're trying to bring more relevant information, fact-based information. And what's really neat about the tool is let's just say you have one of our products, you can literally click in and see the exact claims that were filed, the ROs associated with the claims. So it gives you a lot of great insight. So that's one piece. So the second engine I was referencing is really we've built a consumer engine. And what that does is we've started with 5 different personas, and those personas basically authenticate to the customer. And so are you more of an analytical buyer? Are you more of an emotional buyer? And over time, the tool is built with using AI and different machine learning. It will get smarter. So more data will help these personas evolve. And I would imagine at some point we have an infinite set of personas. But what that does is it actually it influences the tool. So Jason, your presentation might look different than my presentation based on the persona we most closely match with. And the data we're collecting through the process helps us to understand the persona that we fit. And that is very unique in the space today. And you can imagine there's a lot of benefits there with consumers. And if we are able to tailor to the way they want to consume or ultimately be educated as it relates to our products.
So ultimately, Gyde helps dealers sell more F&I products, right? Improves
Yes.
consistency, improves transparency, improves customer satisfaction. Check.
Check. And I'm going to add improves, more to the improves list.
Okay.
What we're also trying to do is to speed up the time of proficiency for an F&I manager. So today it might take 500 or 600 deals for an F&I manager to see enough of reality to be comfortable and proficient when it comes to administering a transaction. I don't have exact data yet. We've just launched the tool. But what we're trying to do is narrow that gap. And what we built in Gyde is called Coach's Corner. So the data I was referencing earlier about a claim, in Coach's Corner, we are telling F&I managers, this is the way you should approach this consumer based on the persona. And these are the things you should highlight. So we're authenticating to the consumer, but we're also authenticating to the F&I manager. And over time, that will get smarter as well. So we're helping speed up the transaction from a proficiency perspective with the F&I manager, and also helping to provide them more insight that they could develop a faster relationship with the end consumer.
I know you have been working on this for a long time. This process does not happen overnight. How has JM&A Group been laying the groundwork to support where the dealership model is heading, Scott?
Yeah, this definitely hasn't been. And I want to just say something, Jason. JM&A, our strategy was not we want to get into the technology business and go compete with a bunch of technology providers. This is part of our strategy of how to drive performance improvement at the dealer level. So as you know, we have a field force that's in stores today. We're providing training. We're providing different insights and consultative support around processes and pay plans and incentives. This fits into that. And so when we've thought about the future of the business, there's no secret that consumers are performing more of the transaction online. There's also no secret that there's more control, and sometimes that can be perceived as a bad word, but consumers want more ability to dictate the outcome of their transaction. So when we look at those things, and then we look at the advent of data and AI that's going to be able to influence it, it was very clear to us strategically that we have to have, again, some representation in the transaction. And the only way we felt comfortable that we would be able to influence that is if we did it ourselves. We built this tool. We did not white label it. We actually went to the organization that was involved in helping Apple build Apple Care around cell phones. So they had some experience doing this. And so we built it. And part of what was important in the decision set to get to this point is we have to constantly be iterating the tool. So today, version 1.0 is going to look very different than version 2.0 in the future. So we're constantly A/B testing based on the data, what's working and what's not working. And ultimately, we feel that in order to continue to lead F&I and lead performance at the store level, we couldn't do it anymore without a tool. And that was ultimately the point. But there was many years of back and forth, and it's not inexpensive to create your own technology, but we're that convicted to the space, we're that convicted to driving performance, and ultimately the continued evolution of digital transaction tools.
We've heard about some new and exciting partnerships that are taking place within JM&A Group as well. Can you share a little more about what those are and really what they mean for dealers?
Yeah, so we launched also at NADA Stellantis, a partnership with Stellantis, and we introduced what's called FlexCare Drive. So FlexCare was a brand that Stellantis had. We introduced the FlexCare Drive component of it, and it's really designed to support the 14, iconic brands that fall underneath Stellantis's umbrella. I mean, you guys have talked about, many are talking about with Antonio Filoso in place, there's a lot more momentum building in Stellantis. And they had reached out to us, and we began having some dialogue about, how do we help them better build a dealer-facing F&I model that leverages the consultative support, the product knowledge we have, the different structure options that exist with the power of the brand and what they're doing to improve, their support for their dealers. And so we launched that just prior to NADA. It was a big focus of NADA. And it really reinforces that OEM dealer-centric mindset that we have today with our other OEM partners. So we're really excited about this Stellantis partnership. We've got a lot of traction underway. And we're learning together as we get to know them and they get to know us. But there's been a lot of open-mindedness between both parties, and I would expect more exciting announcements in the future as what we're going to help bring to bear for the Stellantis brand. But Gyde, as I was just talking about, that's part of the offering now that Stellantis can benefit from. So it was exciting timing for both of those announcements. We also announced recently a Woman in Automotive Career Advancement Program. So something that we've been doing at JM&A, Jason, for the last several years is we've had a career advancement program in place. And what we've done is we've brought women that are in the automotive space together into our office, and we've provided a week-long training for those females that are aspiring to grow within the auto space. And we've had dealers such as Rita Case or Liza Borges come in and talk to these associates. But we've also had many JM family and JM&A associates, including an executive coach that we provide. And what the whole goal of the program is that we want to help A, develop these females, and B, provide them more contacts in the industry that they can lever to ultimately grow their careers. And the female dealers that have come in have been critically important to helping provide insight as to what they went through to get to the points that they've been on. We've had 5 classes so far as of March of this year with 61 attendees. So what we decided to do with Women Automotive is put a scholarship program in place where we're going to sponsor. We cover the career the program the career advancement program I was just describing. We cover training costs, but for this sponsorship now, we're going to pay for all the travel costs and everything else associated for 2 females. So we're continuing the CAP program, now partnering with Women Automotive to have a sponsorship for 2 women to come in and be a part of this program. So we're very excited about it. And we feel it's just our duty in the industry to help bring, more diversity and help give people more opportunities. Jason, I know I'm passionate about this topic. I'm going to give you one last. So we have another program within JM Family. So the 3 auto units in JM Family, it's called Voices of Women in the Field. And so we started this program a couple of years ago. And what we've seen growth in the amount of promotions and the amount of associates in the field, female associates in the field for us. And so we've seen progress. Similar with the career advancement program, we're seeing progress in these, women attain more of what their goals are. And so we're going to continue doubling down on this space and rethinking more of how we can help. So excited about that.
Wonderful. Dealers are always thinking about ways to take advantage of capabilities, especially ones that you've just outlined here, Scott. Where do they begin? And really, what are the biggest opportunities for dealers right now? There's a lot of talk about finding more operational efficiency as margins are continually under pressure. A lot of talk about artificial intelligence, all of those things. But what's your view on both of those questions?
Yeah. So my first answer was going to be cost out. So exactly to your point about efficiency, a big focus today from our perspective with dealers is, as gross profits continue to be under siege, and you've seen the trending around gross profits. Fortunately, last year, outside of 2022, which was the F&I peak, was our second best performance year. So we're still performing at much higher levels than pre-COVID. But the reality is our costs have grown, and the true front end, the margin on the vehicle itself, continues to be compressed, from the COVID highs. And so for us, it's really focusing on where's the inefficiency exist in your dealership and how do you extract cost. And the other topic you were, leaning on a bit was AI and different technologies. And we're a big proponent of that, of looking at where can technology help solve ultimate, challenges or opportunities in the dealership. But I think there's, I provide optimism there with some caution where, one, your data, the structure of your data is very important to leverage AI. We're seeing a lot of opportunities with DMS providers and CRM providers that are bringing AI. And I think that's a good place to start, is look at the partnerships that you have and what is the capabilities that they have within their tools that they're developing today. Beyond that, I think what you have to look at is the transactional opportunities, whether it's answering phones, it's follow-up, it's things along that nature that can help you automate some of those functions today. And then finally, I think it's just looking at process and efficiency. Is dealers, we've said this for years for different reasons, but what does it look like? And I like to say it like this, like, what does it feel like to be on the other side of me? So from a dealer perspective, what does it feel like to be on the other side of the dealership as a consumer? And how efficient are your processes? Because inefficient processes lead to inefficient cost. And so that's a big focus of ours. And that's something that, as I was talking about Gyde earlier, as we talked about some use cases associated with that. I think it's also the more that you can find customer-centric ways to do these various inefficient processes, the better you're going to benefit, because there's a direct correlation to gross profit. And that's nothing new, Jason. We've talked about that for years in the industry. But I just think it's something that we have to continue doubling down on.
We've also talked about resilience, and that continues to be a defining theme for this industry. Resilience in all cases. What excites you about the industry, Scott? You and I talk all the time about what an interesting industry that we're operating within. But what excites you, and how does resilience play into that?
What first excites me is, as I mentioned earlier, the projections this year for a close to 16 million SAR is good. It's a very healthy business, so that excites me. What also excites me is we're seeing used car values hold pretty strong, and customer demand, even though we've been talking about transaction prices, even though we've been talking about interest rates, even though there's all these things, continues to be there. Now it might be different by brand and different by geography, but all that leading up to a 16 million SAR is a pretty good thing. So I'm optimistic about this year in the business. From a resiliency perspective, the auto industry continues to surprise and impress so many people, because if you think about the tariff implications last year, we fought through that. We've had to fight through over the last several years everything I just mentioned: transaction costs, inflation, etc. And we seem, to me, business owners tend to have the best chance to overcome when the incumbent is focused on the opportunities that exist in their business. And so I'm excited about dealers continuing to dive into cost, continue to look at technology, to continue to defend their turf around, the existence of their franchise, continue to invest in their businesses and find better ways to ultimately support the consumer to the future. And I think there's a lot of curiosity. We're getting a lot more questions from our dealers, and we have a lot more information we're able to provide to them today. And what we're seeing is, Jason, is instant action. It's like today with AI and other, you can aggregate so much data, you put a compelling story together, and dealers take action, and that excites us. And so we're bullish and optimistic about this year and years to come.
Would like to hear that. Wonderful. Scott Gunnell, always a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for the update and all the interesting announcements and introductions that you were able to share with the industry recently. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Thank you. That's the 65th episode of Full Throttle, and a special thanks to my guest, Scott Gunnell, president of JM&A Group. Thank you for listening, and for a library of these episodes with industry leaders, go to thepresidiogroup.com. You can also find a library of these shows on the Presidio Group's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jason Stein. We'll talk to you again next time.